Okay, now for our last video for sampling with a Tedlar bag in the biogas industry, it is probably one of the more trickier way on how to collect a sample because there's many variables that could happen. When you receive your sampling kit, you'll receive a Tedlar bag. You'll receive several lengths of tubing to do your sampling. Now, for demonstration purposes, what I've done is I've hooked up a source to introduce pressure into the line, because without pressure, I'm not going to be able to show you how to properly take a sample. One of the main issues that we have, and once again, you have to make sure that this is either in the upright position or the parallel or perpendicular position. Tedlar bags do not sample from a downward position. Any water, that heavy amounts of water that you see running into the Tedlar bag will absolutely bias your results. So make sure you can dry that gas as much as you possibly can. The other thing you have to remember is that we send you several pieces of tubing, and we don't know exactly what type of male ending you have coming off. Some people have just a straight piece. Other people may have a tapered piece. So we send you a couple pieces to select from. Now, if you notice on this one, we have one length of tubing. We have another length of tubing. And much like the other videos that we spoke about, distance is critical. If one day you turn around, and especially sampling with a Tedlar, and you're looking for siloxanes, and you use a long piece of tubing and you connect it up to your ending, by the time we get done cleaning and purging this line, everything is going to stick to it. So the next time when you want to go out and take another sample, and now you're even using a longer piece of tubing, the results stand a very good chance of being biased. Any tubing that you use it once and you throw it out. Don't reuse it to put it on another ending, because siloxanes will stick, and so will your sulfurs, and you're now putting contaminated gas into your next sampling point. What I highly recommend is the smallest piece of tubing you can possibly use to get onto this ending. My rule of thumb has always been no longer than 2 inches. So if you look, with the one small piece of tubing, we also can retrofit into the larger piece. This is going to be way too long. So what I've done is I've cut my tubing down to about a 2-inch segment. The reason why I have 2 different endings is because this is substantially larger than the male ending on the Tedlar bag. Now let's talk about the Tedlar bags real quick. With the Tedlar bag, you notice that there's going to be a label. On this label, you're going to put your description, much like you would do with the canisters. The other thing you want to remember is you have to control your gas flow. If your gas flow is sitting at around 20 psi and you go and open up the valve, this bag is rapidly going to fill up and probably blow up on you. It's like blowing up a balloon. It has so much to go, and then it's going to pop. The other thing you'll notice is that there's an ending on here. To open up this ending, all you're going to do is give it 1 full turn to possibly 2 full turns. If you start unscrewing all the way and take this off, the valve is not going to work properly once it gets to the lab, and you stand the chance of it potentially leaking. So with that being said, we have to do a method called triple rinse of the bag. If you were to look at the Tedlar bag underneath the microscope, it's not a very smooth surface, much like the canister. Inside the canister, there is a coating inside here that takes away any of the porousness away from internally into the canister. We don't have that luxury with the Tedlar bag. Tedlar bag internally is going to be very porous. Now, since siloxanes and sulfurs are very sticky, we want to coat the inside of this bag, much like if you were baking and you use a PAM or some type of non-stick resistance. We want to make sure those siloxanes and sulfurs come out of the bag. We don't want to bias the results and have hydrogen sulfide or siloxane sticking in the bag, which won't give you an accurate number. So like I said, what we're going to do is when we get started, you're going to open up your valve, and when you open up your valve, you're going to hear your gas coming out. As the gas is coming out, make sure once again that you're in the properly vented area. In fact, before you even do that, take your small segment of tubing, so we can now coat the inside of this tubing, and hook it up to your source. Now, depending on what the size of this tubing is that's coming off the line, you may want to use a zip tie or a radiator clamp to keep it from popping off. In some cases, it will happen. So now that my tubing is connected, I'm going to bleed the line, and as the stuff is coming out, any of my gases are now purifying this area. I'm now going to take my Tedlar bag and hook it up. I'm going to turn this 1 to 2 full turns. I'm going to have my valve shut. I'm going to now, with my supply of gas coming through, start to fill up the bag. And then just as it gets about halfway filled, shut the bag off, or shut your valve off. Remove the Tedlar from the tubing and push the gas out. What we're doing to this is that we're going to exhaust as much gas as we possibly can out of the bag to start adding our coatings. The one thing you do not want to do with the bag to try to push it up is try to roll it up and try to push it out and crinkle this. If you start doing any of that, the seams are a little bit on the delicate side. You could rupture this, and the bag is of no longer use to you. So then I'm going to rehook back up again, open up my valve, and start to fill up again. Now I'm going to do this at least 3 times. Shut off my valve, shut off the valve of the Tedlar, open the valve by slightly pushing on it, exhaust all the gas off. Now, after I've done this about 3 times, I'm now going to go for my final sample collection. And one thing that I want to make mention too, why this gas is coming out, is that when you go and fill out the labeling, try to do that prior to, before you take your final sample. Anything that you may write with like a ballpoint pen or something may rupture the bag. So we want to kind of make sure your labeling is done prior to. All right, so for my final sampling collection, open back up, open up my valve, and we're going to take our last sample collection. Here's the part that's really important. With these bags, do not overfill. If you get them to about 3/4 filled, that still may be a little bit too much. We have seen many bags come in and they're at maximum capacity. At this volume, what will end up happening is that you run the risk of this blowing up during shipping. But we want to make sure is that we're sitting. And if you do overfill a little bit, don't worry, just push out some sample, and as you're pushing out, close your valve tight. What ends up happening is when these are being shipped to us, in some cases they do go on planes, as they're sitting into the cabin, the pressure starts to push down and could cause the bag to rupture. With them only being 1/2 to 3/4 filled, there is that room for that pressure to happen and the bags come back without any issues. There's also a containment kit that goes in there, so just in case if this does rupture in a plane or does rupture in a on the truck due to temperature, it will be contained into a paint canister that will keep the gases from making the vehicle smell. Other than that, you're all done with the sample collection. Fill out your paperwork once again. You can send just the Tedlar bag, discard any other tubing, any other equipment that you may ask for. Some people do ask for an extra piece of tubing. Please make sure it does come back. Can't stress enough the fact of do not reuse this stuff over. If you go from here and you take from one port and you go to another port, this is now contaminated. It will bias your gas results. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to call us at Suntech Labs at 315-431-9730.